In this unit, we're going to talk about ions and ion formation. So what is an ion? An ion is a charged particle. So it can either have, so when we're talking about ions, we're saying these ions can either be positively charged or negatively what? Or negatively charged. Now, how do you form an atom? Now, before we go to the formation of an ion, we say these ions can either be one, they all exist as single. You can have single ions. For example, we can talk about sodium and put a charge there. We're going to talk about how we got the positive charge there. So this is an example of an ion that is single. And then we have ions that exist in groups. Okay, so these ones that exist in groups are what we refer to as radicals. Okay, for example, the hydroxide radical. Okay, now, or we can even talk about the ammonium radical. These ones are the grouped ions. So you can see we have the charges there. Now, another thing that you need to know is we attain the charges, or you form an ion from an atom. An ion is formed from an atom. How is it formed? It is formed by either gaining of electrons or losing of electrons in an atom. So if an atom lost its electrons, so if an atom lost electrons, it gains a positive charge. Okay, if it lost electrons, or if it loses electrons, the atom now gains a positive charge, or it becomes a positively charged ion. If an atom, on the other hand, gains, okay, if it gains electrons, it's going to attain a negative charge, or you're going to have a negatively charged what? Ion. So for you to identify how the charge of your ion is going to be from the atom that you have, you need to know if the atom is going to lose or gain electrons. Now, keep it in mind that gaining and the process of gaining and losing electrons involves energy. Okay, so we look at, for example, so let us talk about sodium. Sodium is atomic number 11. This is sodium, okay? So the configuration will be 2:8:1 for sodium. And we are going to talk about another element that is going to gain electrons. In this case, we are going to talk about an element like chlorine. Chlorine is atomic number 17. So chlorine is going to be 2:8:7. Okay, so for you to know if an element is going to gain or lose electrons, you look at the number of electrons in the outermost energy level. Now, chlorine has 7 while sodium has 1. So for you to attain stability, remember these atoms that are going to lose or gain electrons, they do this and they do it to attain stability. Remember, we said there is a rule, we said of 2:8:8. The first energy level always needs to have a minimum and a maximum of 2 electrons, while the preceding energy levels have a maximum of what? 8 electrons, as 8 electrons. Now, in this case, chlorine has 7 electrons in its outermost energy level. So it is chemically reactive, meaning it is unstable. So for chlorine to attain stability, we are going to do what? We are going to add one other electron. Okay, so it is easier for chlorine to gain an electron, for it to be stable, okay, than it losing the 7 what? Electrons, because we've said that the process of gaining or losing electrons involves also energy. For sodium, on the other hand, which has 1 electron in its outermost energy level, for it to attain stability, what are we going to do? We are going to lose that 1 electron in the outermost energy level, because it is easier to lose that 1 electron than to gain 7 more electrons. Okay, so the atomic number or the atomic structure of your sodium ion is going to have two energy what? Two energy levels. So if you form now the atom of your sodium, it's going to have the electron configuration of 2 is to what? 2 is to 8. And the charge that is going to be there, because we have lost one electron, is going to be what? A positive charge. So we said if you lose an electron, you form a positive charge. So we are going to write our ion as Na what? Na positive. On this other side, the chlorine that gained one electron is going to have a negative charge. So we are going to write the ion of chlorine as Cl what? Cl negative. So that is how you form an ion. Another thing that is about ions we can talk about. So we can also write, or we can represent this gaining and losing of electrons in a chemical as a chemical reaction. So let us do for sodium. So sodium, the chemical equation is going to be your sodium atom. Remember, this is the atom, okay? We've said our sodium atom is going to lose one electron for it to be stable. So you have the sodium atom forming now your sodium ion, which is Na positive plus an electron, okay? Now, if you're talking about chlorine, we will write it as chlorine. We are gaining an electron, so we are going to write plus an electron to give you what? To give you your chlorine ion. So that is how you form an electron, and this is how you can represent it in form of a chemical equation. So assuming now you have an element that is going to gain like 2 electrons for it to attain stability, or lose 2 electrons for it to attain stability, how are you supposed to write it? So we are going to talk about an element called magnesium. So magnesium is going to lose 2 electrons for it to be stable. So we are going to write magnesium. This is magnesium atom, okay? To form, we are going to lose 2 electrons to form magnesium ions, okay? So we're going to write plus 2 electrons there. So that is ion formation, and that is what, or this is what happens when you're forming an ion.